As we return ourselves to this series, I have many conflicting feelings about how to move forward. I've built up the appearance of episode 25 for so long, it's almost at Duke Nukem Forever levels of, this will never live up to expectations. You guys have been waiting for something special, and it's something special I plan on delivering full force. Make no mistake, the game I plan on showing you has affected me and my mindset towards my favorite genre of video games in ways I'll never truly escape. But to understand why, I have to set the baseline. For you to get where I'm coming from with that game, first I have to talk to you about these games. Why do we love JRPGs? What is it about them that makes us gravitate towards the genre? No, it's not that! Confound it, I hate it when people make that assumption. Oh, I'm attracted to these pictures alright, but believe it or not, it's not because of the peaks and valleys, if you will. It's because they look different. They present me with something my brain isn't used to traditionally, but finds incredibly pleasing nonetheless. It's an aesthetic that can look both soft and fierce at the same time, something that can be both beautiful and elegant while also being badass and awesome. Its whole purpose is to convey and exaggerate emotion for any number of purposes, be it comedy, drama, triumph, failure, and everything in between, telling an infinite number of stories with a single feature drawn in a different way. This, my friends, is anime, and it's a style that has become synonymous with not only the Japanese, but everything we understand about Japanese pop culture. As you know, though, just because a game's art looks nice doesn't necessarily mean you're going to enjoy interacting with that art, but in the hands of a professional, that can all change. By adopting a style like this, you suddenly open up your world in a certain way. You establish that it's a place filled with high highs and low lows, a place brimming with personality and expression, conveyed in bright color and exaggerated in wonderfully over-the-top ways. Gameplay is important, yeah, but you can't tell me the guys who made Morrowind and the guys who made Chrono Trigger didn't approach their projects with completely different mindsets. It is just an aesthetic, yes, but with some talent behind the reins, that aesthetic can complement and even enhance the gameplay in deep, meaningful ways. For example, Disgaea, or for those of you not familiar with the franchise, How to Blow Up Everything, the game. It's a strategy title. That strategy being to use attacks so ridiculous they often would have no practical application outside of their own context. What makes it work so well, though, is that this is perfect for an RPG. Role-playing games are designed around the concept of your characters getting stronger, making them capable of doing progressively more and more impressive things until they're ready to, quite literally, save the world. Now give that concept to characters whose preferred method of expression is being consistently over the top, and suddenly you're dealing with moves so ridiculously exaggerated that getting to watch them is in itself a reward for all the time you've spent. Whether they're called super moves, limit breaks, overdrives, astral heats, or whatever, this is a concept that a lot of us attribute to Japanese games. And speaking of gameplay-enhancing personality, a character's weapon can often say a lot about who they are and their role in the world around them. Why do thieves prefer knives? It makes backstabbing and purse-cutting easier. Why are these people thieves? Well, that's up to you as a writer, but for it to make sense, it's often because they're trying to lay low, pay off a debt, hide from their past, or simply feed their family. And these are all factors you'll have to take into account when building your world and the stories within that world. Even one of my favorite JRPGs ever does this. Seriously, I don't know why this game isn't talked about more by people. The characters in Final Fantasy IX are their classes, and this is a world built around those characters. From the secret of the Black Mages, to the history of the Summoners and their incredible powers, to the Royal Knights protecting castles high above, and the many, many strange things lurking in the mist below, and even the origin of the mists themselves. This is a world full of stories only it could tell, and the many ways in which you interact with those stories are just as creative and fun. Consider the concept of trance. This is when your characters are pushed to their limits, and their emotions surge forth, granting them enhanced abilities far surpassing what they normally would be capable of. It's not just in battle, though. There are moments in the story where everything one of these people knows and loves is challenged, but instead of giving a heroic speech about how they're going to rise above regardless and wasting about 5 minutes of your time, it's expressed through gameplay, triggering this alternate state the instant they step forward in combat. Once again, this is a perfect example of style and personality enhancing gameplay. Final Fantasy IX is basically the musical of RPGs, except instead of the characters breaking into song when emotions reach a fever pitch, they make you temporarily feel like a god. And not to sound like David Cage here, but that's the key word: emotion. Characters are much easier to relate to when you understand how they're feeling. So when what they're feeling in the game matches what you're feeling in the player's chair, it creates a very magical sense of understanding. Suddenly these masses of polygons feel real, and in a genre that prides itself on being an experience best enjoyed slowly, that is a huge element of your success or failure as a designer. This is something that goes back to the very roots of JRPGs, the building blocks that set the standard for everyone else to come. Some people don't know this, but there's a reason the games are called Final Fantasy. In 1987, Square was once in danger of going completely bankrupt, and only had the resources for one more project. When they asked their director of planning and development, Hironobu Sakaguchi, what kind of game he wanted to make this swan song effort, he stated, and I quote, "I don't think I have what it takes to make a good action game. I think I'm much better at telling a story." In role-playing games, creating a world that players want to live in is more important than in any other genre. It's about making a place that feels alive and welcoming, that enchants you with beautiful vistas and towns bustling with people so interesting and brimming with personality that you could have a chat with any one of these folks and probably have a very pleasant time. Know which game takes that particular cake? Think about every single thing you've ever wanted out of a JRPG narrative, every location you've ever wanted to go, every conclusion to the loose ends you've wanted to see, and all the characters you weren't even aware you wanted to meet. Dragon Quest VIII is all of those things. It's a place where everyone is a character, working in tandem to tell tales of high sorcery, vicious monsters, and brave heroes with mysterious pasts that actually feel mysterious and genuinely interesting. And the coolest part? It's conveyed in equal parts gameplay, visual style, musical composition, and writing finesse. Why is your character the only one not afflicted by curses? Is this the reason you are the sole survivor of the attack on Trode's castle? Geezer seems to think so. Hell, the fact that Geezer is capable of thought alone puts this miles above other games. Bosses are an event in Dragon Quest VIII, as they should be. Usually you don't encounter plot-essential foes until the final chapter of a JRPG, but every single one of these guys feels like a carefully planned part of how this world turns, baked into the narrative like chocolate chips in a nice warm cookie. Even the normal enemies are so packed with personality and outlandish design that they feel like fully fleshed out characters in their own right. Nothing is by accident here. From the iconic character designs of Akira Toriyama to the orchestral mastery displayed by Koichi Sugiyama, everything is in service of making Dragon Quest VIII a tale worth being told, and every location, battle, and bit of dialogue feel like a story by itself. So what have we learned here today? Well, in less technical and verbose terms, we like JRPGs because they look cool. The whole concept of anime is to convey as much as possible in every frame, which makes it no surprise why artistic hubs like DeviantArt and Danburo gravitate towards the style so much, and why a medium whose central concept is allowing you to do things in here that you could never do in real life works so well with it. We're inspired by what it inspires in us, and on the level that it can inspire us. In that sense, creating something in an anime style that's calm, laid back, and relatively tame is like getting the rights to Metal Gear and then only using Raiden. It could be cool if handled by the right team, I guess, but you're kinda missing the point. Because of this, it makes me really sad that JRPGs aren't nearly as revered or popular as they were back in the 16-bit era. Some say the combat is slow, cutscenes are a chore, and having to travel on foot from objective to objective just takes too much time, but again, when done properly, I eat that stuff up. I love a game that gives you time to take in the world and appreciate all the little details that went into it. I love meeting people, learning what their stories are and how I might play into them. And I love studying monsters so I can sit smugly as my party executes a perfectly planned strategy. And I may have said that may all be dependent on how good you can make the world that it all happens in, but if games like The Witcher 3 are any indication, now is a better time than ever to set your ambitions on something as magnificent and well-realized as Dragon Quest VIII, Final Fantasy IX, or Disgaea, because the potential to create games like that with the tools we have is through the roof. So why don't we see games like this all the time? Why don't more Japanese developers aim for the stars and land on the moon? Why do we as a community that loves and understands these games have a reputation for this being the only reason we'll buy anything? Truth be told, I've been wrestling with that question myself for a while now, honestly. It took several years of me playing these games, understanding them, studying them, really, to really truly understand what the answer was. And I think it took several more years for me to swallow my pride and really work up the courage to admit this on a public forum. And I know every single one of you is going to hate me for saying this, but guys, it's our fault. Well, maybe not entirely our fault.